We've had some of the unhappy MPs' tales there. Have you got a tale of hardship with Ipsa?
I think every MP has a tale of hardship. I think the fundamental problem, the substance of this is that actually Ipsa has cost the taxpayer £30 million in the last 3 years. It actually costs £7 million a year to administer the expenses of 650 people. Now, if you told any company which employed 650 staff that just to pay their expenses was going to cost £7 million a year, I think that company would have a collective heart attack. It is bureaucratic. It charges a huge amount of money. It's not even able to answer its telephones before 1 p.m. The chairman earns £700.
Well, they say that's because very few MPs call them before 1.
Well, I'm afraid
and
that's
they say
not
that their
true.
administrative costs are about 3–3.5% of the money they dole out, which is low by private sector standards.
Well, I think Ipsa make a number of statements, including the one about Carl McCartney being hysterical, which I think are just pushing the boundaries of truthfulness. The fact is that they don't answer the phones till 1 o'clock. Their chairman earns £700 a day. Their chief executive earns £108,000 a year. They don't even respond to emails or to letters. They're supposed to make, by statutory agreement, an MP's job easier. They're supposed to protect us. They actually don't. They make us more vulnerable due to their own inefficiency, and they don't assist MPs in doing their jobs. And I think there is a very simple solution to this. And the solution is to scrap Ipsa, to say to MPs, no more accommodation in London. When I was a nurse, when I started work as a nurse, I was given the key to a nurse's room in a house. And while I worked on site at the hospital, hundreds of miles away from home, that was my room. We need the equivalent of a nurse's home for MPs. We need that kind of model.
That'd be a dream for tabloid journalists, wouldn't it?
No,
they would just stake it out 24/7.
No, it'd be the opposite. So we need accommodation which is out of expenses. We know every MP employs 3 members of staff. We know every MP travels around their constituency about twice a week. So take those payments, give them in one lump sum, take out the administrative costs and do away with expenses.
Now, you may be right, but here's your problem, and I'm sure you're aware of it. The public, average income 26,000, doesn't have much sympathy, does it? I mean, you get 66,000 a year, you're on a very decent pension, 20,000 a year to spend renting a second home, expenses, you can earn money outside Parliament. It's not going to get public sympathy, is it?
Well, I think the public have to think, do they want a fully representative democracy? Because if they do, then they need a democracy in which MPs can afford to access. Because the situation at the moment is we're going to have a parliament which is going to be full of millionaires and paupers, because many MPs find the position where they just can no longer afford to be MPs. I know of 2 MPs who are going to stand down because they simply cannot afford and don't want the hassle of having to deal with Ipsa on a day-to-day basis, and that's another issue. Ipsa actually takes up a huge amount of an MP's day on a daily basis.
Who do you blame
we
for
don't
this?
want to do that.
Who do you blame for this?
David Cameron and Gordon Brown, because in the last Parliament, in a process to save their skins, they agreed to the recommendations put forward by Ian Kennedy. It was a knee-jerk reaction, it was badly thought through, it's a bad system, it cost the taxpayer a huge amount of money, and it should never, ever have been agreed to in the first place.
OK, I'm going to let the panel listen on you in a minute, but I understand I'm not to ask you questions about how much you made of going into the jungle, even though we're talking about this. Is that true? You don't want to talk about it?
No, it's not I don't want to talk about it. It's just that when I personally benefit... Now, I don't want to talk about it, Andrew, in the same way you wouldn't want to talk about if I asked you how much you earn from the British taxpayer via the licence fee, including your benefits and your travel, and how much you're paid for this job. I tell you what, I'll do you a deal.
So
you say on this job, you know, you say here and now how much you get paid, and I'll tell you how much I get paid, because my amount's zero. What's yours? You're paid by the taxpayer.
So you've been paid nothing to go into the jungle? Is that what you're telling us?
I have not personally benefited from going into the jungle.
Okay.
I do have a company in which I write actually extensively. I do television appearances extensively, and I do get paid for doing those.
Will you have to declare this in the end in Parliament, will you?
When I benefit personally from that, I will have to declare it to the register, and when I do, with it immediately, I will do that.
But Nadine, isn't there a difference between you and Andrew, which is that you are an elected public representative? You took time out of a paid job.
No,
you
I didn't. Parliament was on holiday.
You are paid an annual salary, which pays you every day of the week, and you took time out to go and do a television programme. And as you've said, it's absolutely right.
Tell the truth.
It's absolutely right that you should declare that.
The truth.
Just
Parliament
as you
was on recess
you're still
when
paid.
I was in the jungle, and it was my holiday.
But your
for the
job
year.
is not just sitting in the chamber of the House of Commons. Your job is representing your constituents,
so
and that's what you do in recess.
I am not allowed to have a holiday.
I'm not saying that you're not allowed to have it. I'm saying saying that you need to declare it, just as you declare the £3,000 that Conservative Home gave you.
I do declare the money that I paid.
That's all we're saying.
Declare
and you're
my
different to Andrew because you're a public representative.
Well, I think Nadine's expenses for going into the jungle have been quite well raked over. I'm more interested in what you think of my idea that MPs should be paid quite substantially more, which I know will be really unpalatable to the public. Do you think that your colleagues would go for that, you know, a salary of, say, 100 grand and absolutely axe all outside earnings?
Outside earnings and expenses?
Yes, exactly.
What do you say?
I think MPs should be paid on a par with GPs and head teachers, and I think that's been fairly well established.
Well, that would be about 100
And I think if there were no outside earnings, I think probably a large number of the MPs who are in Parliament today would probably leave, and I think the kind of people you would attract to Parliament would be a very different type of person.
Can I just check, are you saying that even if MPs got paid 100,000 and had no outside earnings, they'd still leave?
I think there are some who probably financially earn far more than that amount.
So even 100,000 wouldn't be enough?
For many MPs to give up their outside earnings, you've got people who write books, you've got people who sit as chairman of companies, you know, people who, Nicholas, spend far more time on their outside earnings and their occupations than I ever did in 12 days in the jungle.
Just I think you're lumbered with Ipsa, aren't you? Whatever the rights or wrongs. The reality is you're lumbered.
I think probably Parliament is lumbered with Ipsa. Unfortunately, I think Ipsa needs to become a lot more accountable and a lot more itself under scrutiny.